Executive Committee meeting of the Clean Power Alliance for Thursday, November 20th, 2025. Thank you all for being here. As I mentioned just at the start, I'm not at home, so I don't have my computer. So I'm one screen down. So if you've raised your hand or I don't see you, please, don't be shy. Just speak up, and I'll happy to call on you. So thanks for your patience. We'll call the meeting to order at 1:30, and I'll turn it back over to you, Madam Clerk, for a roll call vote.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll note that you are present for roll call. Committee Member Maloney. Okay, absent for roll call. Committee Member Gold.
Present.
Committee Member Santangelo.
Here.
Committee Member Koksar.
Here.
Committee Member Montero.
Here.
Vice Chair Horvath.
Here.
And Committee Member Crosswhite.
Here.
Thank you very much. We have established a quorum.
Great, thank you. Do we have any general public comment in any of our locations?
We did not receive any requests for general public comment here at the office. I don't see anyone at the remote locations at this time.
All right. Then we will move on to the consent agenda. If anyone has any comments or changes that they need to bring up, please do so. Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion by Committee Member Gold and a second by Committee Member Santangelo to approve the consent agenda. Chair Klein-Lopez, how do you vote?
Aye.
Committee Member Gold?
Yes.
Committee Member Santangelo?
Yes.
Committee Member Koksar?
Yes.
Committee Member Montero?
Yes.
Vice Chair Horvath?
Aye.
And Committee Member Crosswhite?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Okay, great. Moving on to agenda item number 2. We will have an oral update on CPA operations from our CEO.
Great. Just 3 things to mention today. One is I hope you all saw the press release about our credit rating upgrade from S&P. We now are officially A, no more, got rid of the minus. And I thought it was interesting. They talked about many of the normal things, on our finances. But I thought that they highlighted 3 things that were interesting about us. One is strong governance. So thanks to you. Proactive risk management, which we do a lot of between our procurement team and our middle office. We have several staff doing that every day, all the time, and has kept us in good stead. And then the third thing was how we had developed a very low carbon energy portfolio, which you would not normally see in a credit rating report, but it speaks to our ability to navigate changing politics, changing regulations, and meeting California's mandates without too much trouble. So I thought it was interesting that they brought up the renewable energy part as developing lots of renewable energy and having a high level in our portfolio was a risk mitigation strategy. And I just wanted to point that out, and it's mitigating risks across a lot of different venues, including climate change. The second thing is I just wanted to let folks know I had the privilege last week of attending the first graduation of Flint Ridge Partners, which is the pre-apprenticeship training program run out in the San Gabriel Valley for folks who are coming out of the criminal justice system or emancipating from foster care. There were 20, almost 30 graduates from their 10-week boot camp, all of whom had offers to enter the building trades already as they graduated, several of whom into IBEW. So I'm very happy to see that move forward, and we're working hard on clearly with winter and the women ones, they continue to graduate cohorts, and we're working on duplicating something in Ventura County. And the third thing on a fun note is we're excited to, this year be the sponsor of the LA Auto Show's EV Pavilion. There are, that's, across 10 days and Thanksgiving weekend. It includes a test track, lots of EV cars, and promoting our EV Smart Charge and other programs that assist in that realm. There are still complimentary tickets available. If anybody still wants some from the executive committee, please let us know. You have to pick a day, but as long as you pick a day when you'd like to go, just contact Gabby and she'll arrange those tickets. And if you decide to come the day after Thanksgiving, I'll see you there. That's my operational report for today.
All good news. Any questions or comments for Ted?
If I may, Madam Chair, I don't know how to raise my hand, so I'll just be rude and interrupt if you don't mind.
Please, and better.
I just wanted to affirm Ted's report on credit rating process. When I was chair of the county board last year, we had a similar experience where our credit rating agencies, one of which elevated, and so we were sort of at the top across the board when I was chair, and we've been able to maintain it. They acknowledged that we established our establishment of a climate budget for the county, and taking on sustainability and resilience goals actually rated with them. It was a factor that they considered in their rating, and they asked us questions about it. So I'm glad to hear that the goals that we've established are not just aspirational or ideological. They are truly fiscal resilience as much as environmental resilience. So I thank you for raising that, and congratulations to you and your leadership team for helping to steward us into good decision making.
I love that. And I hope we do spread the word on that, because our cities need to know that as well. I think that we try on our end as well. And so it's nice to know that those efforts are recognized and measurable, quantifiable. So thank you. Other questions or comments for Ted? All right. On to the next then. Agenda item 3 is to review the draft agenda for our December 4th Board of Directors meeting. So again, I'll turn it over to you, Ted.
Okay, great. I'll run through the consent items, or the proposed consent items first. We have a proposed CAC appointment for a vacancy, the one vacancy we have on the CAC from the San Gabriel Valley. Nice to see one of our newest communities, La Cañada Flint Ridge, contributing a member to the CAC. It's always good to have those folks around when you're enrolling new cities. We have the proposed 2026 legislative policy platform, a copy of which is attached to the agenda. It was unanimously recommended for adoption by the Legislative and Regulatory Committee last at its October 29th meeting. Not a lot of new stuff in there, but I would say that it does make sure that we are proactively addressing data centers and how data centers may impact the grid, which is getting a lot of attention recently, and also around affordability. We've also consolidated, and in the consolidation expanded the conversation in the platform around public finance of infrastructure to accommodate some of the things we might like to do in the transmission space. The next item is phase 7 subset rates. We established, or you established, subset rate targets last year, a year ago. A lot has happened, and we anticipated, and in the staff report noted that this is something we might have to revisit depending on how the PCIA shook out, how costs were coming, either on the downside or the upside. And it did come to pass. What we will be proposing is a rate reduction to the phase 7 phase 7 subset customers to align with the residential and small business targets that are already in place for those customers. If we did not, we'd be sort of way out of cost of service and margin considerations on those customers. So it's a small technical item, but we like to make sure that we're staying in good graces with our customers and with our cost of service principles, and had anticipated that this might happen. The next item is on workforce development MOU. That didn't make it onto the Ventura County Board of Supervisors yet as an official request or an official authorization to accept the grant. So we're going to have to push this to February. And the last item is innovation fund. We got great proposals. Want to thank the review team, and have a great list, 6 great projects to recommend. True to innovation, we also learned a lot from the ones that didn't get recommended by that review team, and they all focused interestingly on community resilience. The way we've thought about a lot of our programs to date have been at the individual customer level, and a lot of these were looking more broadly at how CPA could fund community resilience items. A couple of them, part of yours, Susan, in Camarillo, was about backup power for streetlights. We had one in Malibu also that was backup power for streetlights. There's some technical issues that we need to work out in terms of community resilience, but we definitely note the demand, and want to run a round 3 of the Innovation Fund in the first half of 2026, specifically on community resilience, because it was such a high level of interest, and we'll be coming back to you and eventually the board with some guidelines around that. One thing we're going to do is we're going to talk to all of those cities that weren't selected, who had community resilience applications, to talk about some of the issues that we may have seen in them, but also to help with them to help us develop the new criteria for how we would screen and rank those projects. So that's all I've got on the consent agenda. Happy to see if there are any questions or comments about those items. I see Supervisor Horvath.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank the committee for including Los Angeles County's project among their recommendations. And we're, doing our work on extreme heat very clearly in partnership with CPA as a result. So thank you for that. I do know there were a couple of projects in Malibu and Westlake Village that were community-focused resiliency projects. And while I know there were targets that were considered that weren't I do think that community-focused resiliency projects are worthy of our attention going forward. And so I hope we will find a way to consider projects that focus on that in future allocations and as we think about other programs that we want to fund, I think those are worthy goals to consider as well. So I just want to acknowledge that. And I know there's a lot of demand out there, so hopefully we'll be able to do that. But thank you for this presentation.
Yeah, it's definitely our intention to reach out to those who applied and develop something where we can stack those projects up against one another within that broad bucket. And also have some of the projects learn from one another pre-application, because the idea of the street, the traffic light backup power, two very different approaches to how one might do that coming from Camarillo and from Malibu. Camarillo was thinking about putting some small batteries in their actual traffic light boxes, the boxes, whereas Malibu had a big battery or some batteries that they were going to truck around in the case of a power outage. They would live at a city yard. Two very different approaches to how you might do that. And I think we can learn from each other just even in the setting up of the criteria.
Hey, Ted,
Yes.
this is Alex. The subset rate, when the small business is going to start seeing the rate reduction?
So for the subset rates, which is just in our phase 7 communities, that's La Cañada, Flint Ridge, Linwood, and Port Hueneme, that would be automatic on January 1st, just like we're doing for the residential and small business customers in those 3 communities.
All right, thank you.
Yep. All right, I don't see any, Deborah, I'm helping you out. I don't see any.
Thank you. Yeah, sorry, I got a phone call and so it blocked my Zoom.
Okay.
This is why I need my third computer, but it's a travel day, so I didn't want to take it with me. So thank you. All right. I have to get back.
Yeah, so I'm going to move on to the regular agenda. The
Okay.
regular agenda has a public
okay.
hearing to add our 2 new communities, Cudahy and Fillmore. Like this most recent enrollment, we will be proposing to the CPUC an October 2027 start date to get through the summer and be able to hold rate comparisons for a full 9 months there. We'll also have power share power purchase agreements. These are local projects to fund the power share program, which is 100% renewable energy at 20% bill discounts for low-income customers. If all of these projects are successful, we would fill our entire allocation of the power share program, which is exciting, certainly to our procurement team, who could then move on to other things. but is 4 PPAs with 3 counterparties. Excited that 2 of the 4 would be our first 2 power share projects in Ventura County. All the others have been in LA County so far, and they're interesting in that they're what's called agrivoltaic projects, which changes out crops from high water use crops to lower water use crops that happen to thrive in shade, and plants those crops underneath the solar panels. So it's a way of using agricultural land, using less water, continuing the agricultural economy, but also bringing renewable energy in. And we'll be showing some pictures of what this might look like in Ventura County. And the last item will be our next item on the agenda is interim rate adjustment approach. Any questions on new cities or power share power PPAs? I don't see any. All right.
All right. Then I think we're moving on to our presentation, right?
Yep.
All right.
All righty. So now we'll move on to the agenda item 4. And I will also be making this presentation, but wanted to acknowledge the work of Matt Langer and Karen Schmidt and Karen's team. A lot of crank turning here on in Excel spreadsheets and moving options around based on incoming financial information from the first 3 months of the year, where we're doing well. But it's good work going in to this. So if we could go to the next slide. So as we talked about at the last XCOM meeting and at the board, we're going to have a pretty big swing in rate comparisons in January. We don't know exactly how they're going to shake out, but we know it's going to be large enough that we should be considering an interim rate adjustment like we did last year. I think the one thing is, this is not a fiscal crisis to implement a rate decrease that, on the generation side is in the neighborhood of like 20%, regardless of the option. We saw this coming. We told you we saw this coming in May. You acted accordingly and approved rates that were a little higher than other options to prepare for this. And we had some contingency to prepare for this. So the 4 options that we're presenting today are all good options, I will say. It's really about how you all want to handle it. But from a fiscal perspective, we're good with all of these to varying degrees. But there are certainly no bad options. The other thing I'll note is that of the 4 options, you'll see when we get to that slide, rate comparison numbers. Recognize that those are indicative, because what we're doing is we're saying, what net position are we targeting? When are we targeting to implement a rate reduction? And then when we get your direction on that, we're going to turn the crank and or various cranks, and rate comparisons will be an outcome of that. We're trying to, as we said, as we heard from Deborah and Julian last month, let's try to continue to get away from targeting comparisons and achieving the goals that we want to achieve, whether that's quick rate reduction, big rate reduction. We've got options for everyone there. So we go to the next slide. Oh, and I'll just, for the record, one more thing. This discussion only is talking about rates, phases 1 through 6. Our current communities, phase 7 is on a completely different track. It's on a good track, as you've seen by our ability to reduce rates for those subset customers. But what we're talking about is the 1,035,000 customers that we currently have from our previous communities. All right. So this is a repeat from the board, but we've had some big swings and we will continue to have some big swings. Right now, our customers are doing really well. Lean and clean customers are saving between $9 and $13 a month on average. If you're a high-use customer, they're saving even more. And green customers are paying almost the same as an Edison base rate customer who's getting 3 times fewer renewables, or 1/3 the renewables that our customers are getting. Now, January, it's going to flip. We've seen this before. We've dealt with it before. But it is flipping, in areas where, when you look at 7 to 18% more expensive, it's time to do something. Next slide, please. So reminder, we've remained highly competitive, and because the question always gets asked, short-term bill comparison fluctuations don't have a discernible impact, or they have not had a discernible impact on opt-outs, customer participation rates. My hunch is that will continue. You can't let it linger. But it does also, of course, have real impact on real people. You can't let it linger for too long. I think especially when the vibe out there is around affordability. It's everywhere in our body politic and in people's lives. So that's why we think moving quickly, and quickly is up to you, February or March, but no later than March is important, like we did last year. The other thing I'll note, just for context, is we know our financial results for the first 3 months of the year. We are well ahead of budget, but we're not going to know any more information about our financial results for the current year by the time we bring this, whatever recommendation you make, to the December board meeting. So there'll be no updates on that. By the time we take, you take a future action, whether it's in January or February, we will know more information at that time. But by that time, it's probably too late to change an approach, which is why we need to move now. All right, so lots of info on this slide, but I'm going to walk you through, and in a funny way, I'm going to ask you first to look at a footnote. So the footnote is that based on current rates and power price projections, very favorable markets, and the fact that we're doing our jobs to control costs, we would be projected to contribute almost $140 million to our net position. That's almost double the budgeted number, and even potentially over our maximum reserve amount level. So I think we would be talking about a pretty significant rate reduction or in next June, no matter what. The markets are very favorable right now. We've taken advantage of that, and we're well ahead of budget. So that's the first thing. Now to the way to read this table. We've set it up to really focus on the inputs, the when to reduce and how much to budget of an increase to our net position, rather than the rate comparison outcome. As I mentioned earlier, that is in those numbers there are indicative. It's probably pretty close, but those aren't the numbers that we're asking you to endorse per se or target. What we will do is we will take your direction on when to implement and with what net position level to target. And then when we come back in either January or February with the actual rates, we will have turned the crank. We will have understood what our actual results have been. If our actual results have been better than what we project, then these rate comparisons would look even better. If they're worse, they might look worse. And that's why they're not whole numbers like we do when we set rates annually. It's just going to turn out. The next thing you'll note is that obviously, as we explained at the board, moving quicker means a relatively less overall rate reduction for the rest of the year. The longer you wait, the more time you have to reduce rates further. And then the last thing I'll say is, the difference between 10 and 20 million here is not that much. Really what you're doing is you're saying with those numbers, the $10 million number versus the $20 million number, the 10 million increases the risk that we would have to dip into the fiscal stabilization fund this fiscal year. I'm pretty confident that we would be able to hit 10 million. If we didn't, and we did have to dip into the fiscal stabilization fund, it would probably be not very much, but it would be. And I think and this was Matt's insight, I think we would know exactly why. There would be some market event, 1 month that we could point to, or 6 weeks of market turbulence that we could point to say, oh, that's why it didn't happen. That's why we had to dip into the fiscal stabilization fund. So again, this is more about your risk tolerance for dipping into that fiscal stabilization fund rather than the actual number. With that, I think I'll stop. We're asking for a recommendation from you all today, but that was a lot of information, and I'm sure there are questions and thoughts.
Thank you. I'm so sorry. My phone is ringing and it's taking me away from Zoom. Do you want to start going into?
I see Jenny
Okay.
Crosswhite.
Okay, go ahead, Jenny. I have thoughts, but I've also talked with Ted a couple of times about this. So, I don't know if you want to ask questions first before we dig into our thoughts.
I don't think I have questions. So I think if others have questions, I can defer my thoughts.
Go right ahead, Jenny. I think
okay.
it's open forum here.
Okay,
All right.
go ahead.
Well, so I know last time we had this discussion about whether or not to make an interim rate reduction. I felt very strongly that we needed to be more cautious so that we wouldn't have to raise rates at the interim or when we came to do the actual budget. This time I'm leaning the opposite, given that either option still adds to our net position. The thing isn't still up there. Let's see, I can pull it back up on my packet.
Why don't we put it up there, because I think be helpful.
But the option where we change the rate in February as opposed to March, I think this time makes more sense. We're still projected to add to our net position by 10 million. We're doing really well on meeting our reserve goals. And given the order of magnitude of the impact to customer bills, if we did nothing, I would rather not, I think, let that linger longer than we had to, but I'm willing to hear where others are at this point.
Looks like Julian has his hand up, and then Alex.
Well, thank you. And first off, it's lovely that we're in such a position. And I think the differences aren't great. However, I sort of think about this like a diet. So you put yourself on a diet, you lose 5 pounds, and then you figure you lost 5 pounds. You can go ahead and eat whatever the heck you want. And guess what? You're no longer on a diet. So I think that we should, because the numbers aren't all that dramatically different, I think we should continue on the strongest and most conservative fiscal path we can reasonably do, at the same time creating the benefits for our residents. I think the differences on an individual bill between 10 and $20 million are small, but at the end of the day, I would rather stay out of the fiscal stabilization fund. And if, I don't know what the risk difference is, but it's $10 million different. And I think as an organization, we probably do better to have it. We've seen in the past, we've had winters where things got really wonky when the price of natural gas went through the roof. We lost what, $50 million in a month. And so we just don't know. And I wouldn't get too cavalier about the world staying calm. I would opt for the most conservative posture we could take.
Julian, I'll just say the most conservative posture up here is 20 million. Can I just ask if you have a view on February versus March?
No, I would do it. I mean, I would, there's no reason not to do it. I would do it. I mean, once we
In
make the
February?
decision-
Are you saying in
February, yeah,
February?
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
February. I would go
Thank
20
you.
million in February.
Okay.
It sounds like a game of Clue in the kitchen with the hatchet, yeah. Yeah, that's what 20 million in February.
Thank you. My phone is now on Do Not Disturb. Alex.
Thank you. I agree with Julian, for us to be conservative because we don't know, right now we're enjoying this prosperity, but it can turn on a dime, right? Because of economic forecast, everybody's talking about maybe the stock market is going to collapse one of these days. So I think maybe we should be cautious. But Ted, you confused me a little bit when you talk about the 100 million net position goes to our reserve, right? And then you talk about potentially to lose 10 or 20 million. That 10 or 20 million is basis of the discount rate that will begin, say, in February.
Yeah. So the way this works is that the 10 or the 20 that we're showing you here is the 10 or the 20 that we're showing you here would be the projection of what we would make in the year.
Yeah.
So if, let's say, we targeted 10, but ended up being off by 20 million, that would mean we would lose 10 million on the year. And what we would do to show not having lost money is we would pull $10 million out of the $135 million fiscal stabilization fund. So what you're doing is you're providing cushion at a higher or lower level. And if we ended up dipping into that, it would be dependent on how much we missed.
But our net position would still not compromise, correct? It will still be strong.
No, our in that, if we pulled out of the fiscal stabilization fund, that is the way we spend reserves.
But we'll still have a strong reserve for, say, for 120 days liquidity.
We would still be over 45% reserves, probably more than that.
Okay. All right. So I do agree that maybe we should do it in February.
Okay.
Thanks.
If I can add, oh, do you want to go ahead, Supervisor?
Go ahead, Madam Chair, you can go first.
Well, I was just going to share that I got a message from Robert Parkhurst, who also tends to agree with the February 1st and 20 million contribution to the net position. He said this provides early relief to those communities while also providing an adequate cushion for CPA to contribute to its net position. If things are more difficult than we expect, we have cushion, avoiding the potential to dig into our fiscal stabilization fund. So that sounds like he's agreeing with some of the comments, and I just want to say that that's where I am as well. I always value, and you've heard me say this before, but I always value stability more than the whiplash. And so for me, starting in February, even though it's not as great of a savings if we hold out a month, to me that brings in a little of that whiplash up and down. So I'm always an advocate for the more stable route longer term, and agree that 20 million is the target, just because the house isn't on fire. We're not in an emergency. I think we save the fiscal stabilization fund for the real emergencies. And so I would also agree with the February 1 and 20 million. Jeff.
Wait,
oh, no, wait.
Supervisor
Sorry.
Horvath first, yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
It's okay, thank you.
Jeff.
So I want to thank our staff for really working this out and helping to keep us not only competitive, but mindful of the range and diversity of the customers that we serve and the variety of interests that are around our collective table, to give us options that speak to each of those. I think coming into this conversation, I was leaning more towards the 10 million March 1st rate option, not only because it gives us more certainty as an agency where we'll be at that point and what we've had to navigate in those tricky winter months, but also, when you look at what the adjustment is proposed to be, there's a reduction for 2 of our tiers, and I think it's safe to say that our lean tier folks are the ones who are most concerned about cost, and it gives them the greatest cost savings. It also means our folks who are still helping us manage our goals in the clean tier are also getting a reduction, and and we're confident that they'll be able, we can provide that reduction, knowing where our position will be at that point. And the increase to the tier of customers that are really helping us be more aggressive about our green goals have a less dramatic increase on how they are working to participate in that goal. So I guess that I saw that as my primary option, but I'm hearing a collective around 20 million February 1. And I think that was my second choice. Though I do note that, our folks who are helping us remain aggressive about our goals are seeing, of all of the options, the largest increase with this option. And, you know, if costs are as significant a factor for folks, you know, that it's just something to be mindful of, that we don't want to be losing people who are in that tier because of cost implications, because we do want to continue meeting our goals. But I'm open to hearing where we're heading. I think if that's where the group coalesces around, I will be comfortable with that.
Okay. Jeff, what do you think? And then
Yeah,
Susan.
thank you. I'm sorry for coming in a little bit late today, but you know, I think I have a stronger opinion about when we begin rather than which, you know, how aggressive we are. And I think that we ought to do it February 1st. So as I understand, we're going to get hit, our customers are going to get hit in January regardless, because we're not making this change in time. So that this earliest can go into effect is February 1st. I think there's a real danger in allowing these pretty significant increases or premiums over Edison to linger for too long. You know, 1 month, people can sort of eat it and they overlook it and they think, oh, what was that about? 2 months, it becomes a trend, and then they start asking, what's going on here? It's too high, it's too high. So I do think we benefit from having this go into effect sooner rather than later. Between the $10 million target and the 20 million, you know, it's the impact to CPA is probably greater than the impact to the bills. It seems, you know, I came into maybe leaning towards the more aggressive approach for the customers, I should say. So the $10 million level, but you know, looking at the numbers, it's not a huge difference between the various tiers between the $10 million target and the $20 million target. And the actual impact on the bills, you know, it strikes me as less significant than I thought maybe earlier. So I guess I would lean towards the $20 million approach, but either way, I think we ought to start sooner rather than later.
Thank you. Susan and then Rita.
Thank you. I agree with Jeff. I think he made a really good point about I feel more strongly about when we start the rate adjustment. And so I would opt for February 1st. I think sooner is better. And I am tending to be more conservative and would lean towards the 20 million. Not lean towards, I would choose the 20 million contribution. I just think we're in a position where we need to be more conservative right now. I tend to make other decisions along the same lines as sticking to the conservative route. And so that's where I'm sitting right now.
Thank you. Rita.
Oh, great. Thank you so much. I too appreciate everybody's comments. I think you guys all bring some very unique perspectives and can articulate your points effectively. I was leaning towards similarly to Supervisor Horvath's with the March 1st $10 million bucket, just because you have the lean and the clean that are at discounts to the STE. And I think that would be helpful. But then I also hear what Susan is saying and about starting it earlier in February. So I don't think it's an easy decision, but at least for Carson folks, I would prefer that we end up somewhere where we have savings in relative to SCE. Thank you.
So to clarify, Rita, you agree with February, and are you leaning more towards the 10 million with the higher discount, or the 20 million, which is more conservative?
I think March 1st, 10 million would be the bucket.
Sorry. Okay.
That's okay. I think that would be my initial bucket, but hearing what everyone else is saying, it doesn't seem that folks are leaning towards that, other than Supervisor Horvath's original comments. So if it's between February 1st or March 1st, I would go February 1st as an alternative, but hopefully we stay in the 10 million
In the 10 million. Okay.
contribution. Yeah.
Anyone else? Jenny?
Yeah, I mean, so far it seems like the majority of folks have leaned towards the 20. And again, I pushed really hard that we did the most conservative thing last time. I'm just very aware. We just had to, I'm part of an ad hoc committee that had to do a lot of community listening over the last couple of months. And so I just am very sensitive to the fact that like our food pantries are seeing record numbers right now. And so I know that a lot of folks in our community, whether they've lost breadwinners in their families and are trying to rethink things or making difficult decisions around who goes to work and who stays home with the kids. And, you know, there's just a lot of dynamics that are going on in our community that I know are impacting folks. And so my biggest thing is that it needs to be February 1st. I don't think that we can let that linger. And then that I think is why I had leaned towards the 10, just because I understand the balance, right? Like we want to have as strong of a position as we can. And I do still think that that would give us a strong position, given that we're projected to have a $139 million reserve as of the end of the year, which it says in the note would give, if I'm reading it right, would give us a 62% reserve, right? So it feels like we're still in a really strong position with either of these. And so that's part of where I'm just aware of the fact that all of that reserve is from our customers, and it is because of our customers. And so given that they're going through a particularly difficult time, that just has been top of mind.
Okay. Julian?
You know, I think as we present this to the public, underneath it all, we are cutting rates. I mean, our message is, I mean, this is an internal conversation about what does that look like, but we're talking about cutting our rates here, which I think expresses our sensitivity to the world around us today, not only by virtue of the comparison with Edison, but I think just because it is harder for people today. So it's, you know, you can always cut more and more and more. So, but I think the fact that we're taking the proactive step of cutting our rates really is a message that we want to get out there. And then again, I think that the individual bill payers difference between 10 and 20 million is small, but I think it has a bigger impact on us. So I'm still comfortable with February and 20 million, but I don't want the message that we're cutting rates to get lost in our conversation about how much we're cutting rates.
Thank you. So it sounds like the February piece is pretty set because most of us felt February was the right place to start, and the two who originally preferred March sounds like they're okay with February. Am I getting that right, everyone? So to me, it sounds like the direction for staff for February is pretty set to bring to the board, unless someone tells me otherwise, you know, corrects me on that. After hearing some of the discussions about affordability and you know, CPA reserves and the fiscal stabilization fund, is there anyone else who feels that the 10 million is the better way to go? I mean, if I'm counting right, there seems to be a bit of a majority to recommend 20. But I just want to, knowing that the February piece is off the table, do we want to have any other further discussion on 10 versus 20 million?
Well,
Julian's good with 20. Go ahead, Ted.
yeah, I hate to sort of split the baby, but I am hearing, you know, definitely let's be conservative and make sure that we avoid the fiscal stabilization fund if we can. But I'm also, you know, hearing from Supervisor Horvath and Rita and Jenny that maybe we should try to go as low as we can. There's a simple way to split the difference and say we can target 15. And like none of these numbers are magic, as I mentioned. They are only really about the risk of going into the fiscal stabilization fund. So if you wanted to say 15, that would probably put lean at 1%. When we turn the crank, would probably put lean maybe a little bit more percent lower. Gets clean hopefully closer to parity, maybe even at a discount, depending on what our performance looks like in February. So closer at least to what Carson was advocating for, and bringing green down as well. So 15 is a way of splitting, and maybe there's consensus around that.
I'd be game for that. What does everyone think?
Ted, what if we work backwards? If we assume we were going to do it in February, and you're going to turn the crank, but if you're going to turn the crank, can you turn it to make clean at parity and see what that flops out as the amount of money we would contribute?
So the issue with that is, I mean, we could, but what might end up happening is when we turn the crank, we might end up with a negative contribution to the net position.
That'd be bad.
And then what do we do?
That would be bad.
We're really trying to focus in on a target contribution target so that we have then the ability to produce the rate comparisons accordingly.
Okay. I can live with 15.
We got a thumbs up from Rita. I'm seeing nods from Jenny and Alex and Lindsay and Susan. So I think we have a consensus.
All right, Debbie, we do need a formal vote on this, so if we can just request a motion.
Okay, so the motion is going to be, I'll request a motion for staff to bring back to the board an interim rate adjustment option that begins in February and that targets 15 million to our net position. Is that right?
That's what we
I'll
have.
second that.
Okay, who is the first?
You.
Committee
I'll
member-
second.
However Gabby wants to do it.
I have a motion by Committee Member Gold and a second by Committee Member Montero, and this motion is to approve an implementation date effective February 1st, 2026 at a 15 million net position. Chair Klein Lopez, how do you vote?
Aye.
Committee Member Maloney?
Yes.
Committee Member Gold?
Yes.
Committee Member Santangelo?
Yes.
Committee Member Koksar?
Yes.
Committee Member Montero?
Aye.
Vice Chair Horvath?
Aye.
And Committee Member Crosswhite?
Aye.
Thank you. This motion passes unanimously.
All right. I believe that's it for our regular agenda. And now we are going to move into closed session. So, Madam Clerk, do you want to give us some
Yes.
instruction on that?
Through that. So as a reminder, only executive committee members and designated staff are allowed to attend closed session. All other CPA staff members, member agency staff, and members of the public must exit the meeting room during this closed session. For remote locations, please advise when staff and the public has exited the meeting room. And we're now starting to move you all into the closed session breakout room on Zoom. Mhm.
Okay. Let me know when you're, Gabby, let me know when you're ready.
Ready.
Okay. Madam Chair, I'm going to do the readout now for the closed session item number 5. Direction was provided for the General Counsel to draft an amendment to the CEO's employment agreement for presentation at December's board meeting, extending the CEO's term to the 31st of December 2029, and including an approach that creates an incentive for the CEO to complete the extended term. Period.
All right.
Okay.
Anything else? Are we good with that?
Well, I'm good if you're good.
I'm good.
Okay.
All right. All right. That concludes the report out of closed session. And so are there any committee member comments?
Have a good Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think pending proper board action on December 4th, we will be able to cancel the executive committee meeting on December 18th.
Okay.
And what we're gonna do is have the board meeting, the January board meeting, which we wouldn't normally have. We will have that at 2:00 on the same day as the executive committee, which is January 15th. So we'll schedule a full board meeting for January 15th, but you already hopefully have it blocked off on your calendars.
We do, but what about everyone else?
That's good.
And what I think that will be a quick board meeting. What we may do is try to convene you all for a few minutes after that meeting for an executive committee meeting, just to review the agenda for February.
Just
Okay.
FY on the 15th of January, I might be coming back from Las Vegas on a flight.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you need recommendations, let me know. I have Metro on December 4th, which may turn into a conflict for my participation for full board. So just a heads up for that.
Okay, great.
All right. Happy Thanksgiving, and thank you, Ted, for that evaluation. You're so generous, modest.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for a bit of extended time today.
Yeah, thank you.
I think the extra 20 minutes bought us 90 minutes a month from now. So,
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
Thank
we will not be having our next regular meeting on December 18th. And I will reiterate, happy Thanksgiving, and 3:19, meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.